Okay, so it took me a while to commit to this one because for some reason in the back of my mind I'm always telling myself that there's a reason I can do something with this. This is the transmission out of a washing machine, and as most people know, a washing machine has reciprocal action, which basically means that it goes like this. Okay, anyways, enough said. So I've cracked the seal and I've released the oil that was in here, and you can see what's underneath the hood. So the first thing I've noticed is there's a nice little seal here, so that's pretty cool. Nothing special about that. You see some wear. It's probably a pretty sloppy device, so you know. I just noticed there's a tiny little hole in the top here for this little thing to breathe as it warms up. Interesting. Anyways, enough of that. So as this went around, I see a worm in there, so this thing would have turned, there we go, and rotated that back and forth. Actually, it looks like it really doesn't rotate it so much as it ratchets it. Interesting. That's pretty cool. So this is the first time I've ever explored these. I'm just kind of inferring from what I can see here. That's interesting. So interesting. Okay, anyways, let's get into the meat of it. That's pretty cool. Nice looking gears in these things. You can see where I gold this up a little bit, and it doesn't matter though, because the proper application of a little brute force never hurt too many things. Pretty cool. Now this washing machine was about 8 or 10 years old when it was delegated to the scrap pile, and I see a jackass clip in here that I may or may not be able to get out because I've never invested in a pair of pliers to get one. I realize that I should, but that kind of stuff costs money, and that's the sort of thing I'm trying to avoid. I'm going to have to ask you to help me help myself. I think the proper name for these is there are E-clips, which sort of resemble an E. Oops, sorry. And then there are spring clips. And then this guy here is a spring clip. And I'm just using a pair of needle nose pliers to expand the spring and pop it loose. And that is the thing to which I refer. Nothing special about that. And this thing is really not quite sure what I'll do with all this oil. I might use it. It's pretty stout gear oil. Alright, now we have gotten into some sort of a ratchet type mechanism in here. That's pretty cool. Nylon gears. It looks like this one has got some pretty serious wear on it. That could be how it was made. Alright, put your ass on there. This oil is very slick. So that's interesting. We're gonna rotate this some more. And it looks like the worm actually turns this way. There he is. A smart man would chuck his drill up to this, but I never claimed to be that. So these would have expanded out. It's got some teeth on there and turn this gear. Which, oh, okay, interesting. So this piece here would have basically kept there was a braking mechanism, and so I think that the braking mechanism would rotate this in an opposing direction. I may be wrong. That happens every now and then, actually daily. We've got some interesting mechanism here. It would take me 2 or 3 of these to really figure out how they work, but that's okay. This time I just want to see what's in it. Not too concerned with seeing how it works. Because guess what? I got another one sitting in the corner that I can tear up. So that's kind of what drove this, by the way, is having another one sitting there glaring at me. Kind of makes it a little more tempting to tear into something. So, I see a lot of stamps in these. I can't help but, it's got to be a brand marker of some kind. I have to wash my hands really well. In fact, I know what to do. Be right back. Again. This kind of stuff requires a delicate touch. Alright. That's not going to be a whole lot cleaner, but at least I'll be high while I'm doing this. Now I can see what I'm looking at. And I can throw my camera on the ground. There we go. Look at that. You even got to take a trip. All right. I've got to get an actual holder for my phone. I use my phone a lot to shoot these, so we'll see. That whole mechanism cannot come up. That's odd. I mean, obviously it can. It is, but I don't know why. It's a hell of a worm down there, though. I can't wait to see that. So we're just going to pull this all the way up so we can see what we've got going on here. Alright, so we've got the worm down here. It's not too sharp. It doesn't show as much wear as I would have expected. Oh man. You see a reciprocal gear. That's what that guy is. That's a pretty spiffy mechanism. And here's its mating section. Let's see if I can. It looks like a E-clip on that. Let me go grab another rag because this is slimy. I should really have gloves for doing this because the small metal fragments in certain oils are a contaminant that carries certain risks. Cancer being one of them, so you have to be very careful about that kind of stuff. But I don't have any rags. Let's see what we got going on here. Okay, so that piece looks like it's pressed in place. However, I want that gear. That is a nice gear. This thing is it's a nice piece of cast iron, and these the teeth have been hobbed out. Very good machining. It's a little bit rough, but not too bad. Not as bad as I would have expected. I'll be honest. I very much expected second-rate parts in these machines. This is a cheaper dishwasher. Ha! This is a cheaper clothes washer, and so I really didn't expect to find that great of a machining done in this part. Alright, so we've got a spring clip there. And it looks like I may have to get a little creative to get that loose. We'll see. Alright, there it is. There we go. And I lost that spring clip, but we're not interested in putting this one together. I might try to put one together down the road, but it ain't this one's lucky day. I actually need some shafting material, and this is a beautiful piece of shaft. Going to be high quality, a good quality steel. It's interesting here. Got a little stamped shim. It's kind of funny. So here's the reciprocal gear, and it's rack. Let's see. Make sure you can see me. Okay, cool. All right, so as this rotates in this rack, get in there, damn it! There we go. As this rotates in the rack, it actually pushes that along. See? So it only goes back and forth. Well, this is on a cam, and so it goes in and out, which causes that reciprocal action of the shaft. Pretty cool how they went about doing that. I'm not so sure. It would have been, it may not be the best approach, but then again, it might be the most economical approach. And I really want to get this loose. It looks like I can. It's just pressed into place, but not very well. Of course, I'm pretty sure they didn't expect some jackass to get into it. So, let's see here. I'm going to say that's a screw. It looks like a cap screw. So that's what I'm hinging my bets on anyways. Let's see here. That's a wrench. So for those of you wondering, this is what I do when I'm bored and I have something to take apart. Man, I love to take it apart. There are not too many things that are common that I have not taken apart. It's like going to class. I learned a lot from this. Each thing that I can fix is something that I've taken a bunch apart. There's a huge learning curve when it comes to that. Alright, so it's not customized. Oh, sweet. It's a hell of a cap screw too. A little short guy. Not much of a head. No shoulder to speak of. Beefy little thing. I'll hang on to that. So, there we go. Barely. Alright, so here's our cam. And you can see that thing on a nice big cam too. So as this spins, it pulls it back and forth, which creates that reciprocal action. That's pretty cool how they've done that. Again, I'm not quite sure this is the most efficient approach, but it sure seems to be economical. And the way they've machined all these, and these are all cast iron parts. They look cast. All cast iron. So just cast iron on cast iron. So they're relying heavily on that oil to keep it lubricated. It's no bronze to speak of in there. Thing is a beefy gear. Look at that thing. That is, yeah, you could definitely tell that's cast. You can see the cast surfaces. Some excellent machining on there. You can see the kind of messed up surface here where there's been contaminants rubbed on with this metal. So where that was, you can see where it actually ate into the casting. But we ain't here to judge. This thing was about 8 or 9 years old. Of course, I don't know how heavily they used it. They just said, oh, it's no good anymore. Of course, you know, that could be a nice code word for, hey, I would like to get a new washing machine. And, you know, really that's the only motivation people have to get a new washing machine. We're on 15 minutes here. If I didn't have to keep getting up, I think this this teardown would go quick, but ooh, that just pulled right out of there. Well, that's even better. That means I don't have to cut anything to get that shaft off of there, which is really good news because that means that whole length I get to use. Oh man, that's nasty. So we're just going to spray a little bit more parts cleaner in there. It's times like this that I'm glad I do not smoke. So let's face it, these are probably assembled in some third world country, which that really sucks for them because they're probably not getting paid anything to put these damn things together. But this machining is advertised decent, so I'm pretty impressed with that. I'm eager to see if I can get that worm out. I see some sort of little crenellations in there. So I don't know yet. I would say that's a machined surface. I'm going to say do parts. So we're going to try to tighten this bolt, this thing here, and see if it's not a crenellated nut of some sort. I'm going to say no. Nope, doesn't look good to that. So that might be pressed in place, which means it's a lost cause to get it loose, at least for my meager shop. A little slipping. If I had a press, I could probably get it out, but I don't have one. That'd be a nice piece to have as well. Ooh, and good news, I might get that one out. So I'll probably get that loose on another day. Let's take a look at some of these parts, see how they go together. So as the worm in here, this guy, as that turns, it would make this spin. This piece sits on there, and this is the shaft. So as this spins, it makes that shaft go back and forth, or spin in place actually. So that's pretty cool. Man, this is neat. So looking at the drive on the bottom of this shaft here, that's very simply done. It's just a knurl. It's not even machined. That's just knurled in place. And they must have had a pretty serious lathe to take that. And I just threw those into the oil bucket. Go me. And we've got another spring clip on there. So let's grab our pliers and push her loose. There we go. Just pull that little washer off there. And there is a very nice piece of shaft material. And let me go grab some calipers and I'll find out what the thickness of that is. And, there we go. We got a piece of 3/4 inch, just shy. So that means, focus, damn it. There we go. That's 742 or 747. I'm sorry. That means that is 3/4 inch shafting material. I can use that with 3/4 inch bearings. That'd be great. And that is a nice piece of material, and it's got a nice, this is machined here. Actually, that looks knurled too. And that's deformed, it's not machined. So, there you go, see, it's deformed, it's not machined. And this is deformed as well, not machined. That's pretty interesting. I thought it would have been, actually these are machined. See that little groove at the end here? That's pretty good giveaway. I'm still not convinced. I still think it may be knurled, maybe a deformed, because that shaft is consistent the whole length except for right there. Anyways, so that, I've never torn one of these down before. That's pretty interesting stuff. I'm a little surprised to see that there's no bronze in any of these. It's just a steel gears. There's nothing to wear against. It just sits in that bath of oil and sloshes back and forth. I think that must be why the basin in a dishwasher is so loose in there. I realize that it's to absorb the impact as it sloshes back and forth. I realize that, but it must also be loose enough so that the oil that's inside of this case, this little gear case, sloshes around, because as it gets warm, which it's going to, it'll get thinner, and it's pretty thick in there. It is a thick lube. That liquid you're seeing is the cleaner that I sprayed in there. So it's very thick. So as it warms up, though, that sloshing motion probably keeps the rest of these parts lubricated pretty well. And it's also very thick, so its own surface tension probably keeps it on there very well as well. These nylon gears, hardly worn at all. They said they used this thing for about 8 years. So, again, that's pretty impressive for 8 years of use. Of course, how often do you wash clothes? It's not really, if you quantify it, if you do the math, that's not a whole lot. You didn't use this for a long period of time. So it doesn't have to survive that much. I'm still impressed with it. I love this little reciprocating mechanism, though. It's really cool. There's actually a further reciprocating mechanism. If the loop here was bigger, instead of just having a limited motion, hold on, let's line these up if I can. Mesh, damn you. Okay, so instead of having a limited motion like that, if there was a further loop, this gear would make a full circuit, and as it came back, catch it again. So it would be pretty cool. You can see the dumbass alignment mark. See there? So you know where the center is. There's 2 on this side. So if there's a dumbass on board, which there probably is, he can align that very easily. So yeah, that's pretty cool, man. I'm impressed. I like looking at mechanical stuff like this. This is really one of my favorite types of things to take apart. It's messy. It's pretty nasty to get into, but the price is usually well worth it. I've got a really interesting gear set here. I can easily explain reciprocal motion and how cams work with this set of gears. So here's a cam. See, you notice that it's off center from the axis here, and of course here is the reciprocating mechanism. So you could get, this is reciprocating motion already, just with that cam spinning, it goes back and forth. So to transfer that reciprocal motion into a linear reciprocal motion, so on one axis, that's where this guy comes in. So anyway, cool stuff, and you got to see me nerd out over gears. Yeah, one of these days I don't have a press that's capable of doing it, but I would love to take a transmission apart. I want to do an automatic transmission and a manual transmission, take them both apart, just see how they work. I understand how they work, but understanding and seeing it is 2 different things, I really liked the ability to put my hands on something and see how it works. from the start, you know, from the get-go. That's a lot of cool stuff to me, man. So I'll clean these off and set them in the parts bin and use them whenever I have to explain linear reciprocal motion. That's pretty cool stuff, man. Anyways, good night. That's it. Good night.